He once promised to give his wife and twins the world, but when life took everything from him, she became the provider and forgot what love really meant. This is the story of a woman who became the husband and the man who taught her what true strength means. Welcome to Folktale Princess channel. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section to get a shout out in our next video, and please subscribe to the channel. Amaka and Kelechi were once the kind of couple people admired. They didn't have much, but they had peace. Their small one-room apartment in Enugu was always filled with laughter and the smell of hope. Every evening, they would sit outside under the old mango tree, talking about the future. Amaka would rest her head on Kelechi's shoulder and say, "One day, we will build our own house. A place where our children can play without fear." Kelechi would smile and reply, "I will work hard so our children never know hunger." He kept his promise, at least he tried. He worked long hours as a driver for a private company. Even when he came home tired, he still helped Amaka cook and rub her feet when her pregnancy made her weak. But life has a way of testing love. Just 1 week after Amaka gave birth to their beautiful twin babies, Tobe and Toby, Kelechi received a call that shattered him. His boss said, "We're letting you go. Times are hard." Kelechi's heart sank. He stared at his sleeping babies and whispered, "How will I feed you now?" That night, Amaka held him and said, "Don't worry, we'll survive this together." But neither of them knew that was the beginning of the storm that would change everything. Days turned into weeks, and weeks became months. Kelechi searched for work everywhere, construction sites, transport parks, mechanic shops, but no one was hiring. Each morning, he left home with a CV that had already begun to fade from sweat and sun. Each evening, he came back with empty hands and a heavy heart. Amaka watched as their little savings disappeared. The baby milk finished, and sometimes they had to feed the twins with pap and prayers. One evening, she looked at her husband and said softly, "Maybe it's my turn to help. I can look for a job." Kelechi hesitated. He didn't want her to suffer. But with the twins crying from hunger, he nodded. "All right, Amaka. Try, maybe God will use you to lift us again." A week later, Amaka got a job as a secretary in a company in town. It felt like a miracle. She was excited at first. Finally, she could help her family. The first few months were hard. She would wake up at 5 a.m., bathe the twins, prepare food, and rush to catch a bus. Kelechi, left at home, did his best. He changed diapers, cooked rice that sometimes burned, and sang lullabies off-key. But slowly things began to change. Amaka started coming home tired and easily irritated. When she saw Kelechi rocking the twins to sleep, she would sigh. "You're home all day, yet you still look this tired? You don't even clean this place well." Her words stung like salt on a wound. Kelechi didn't argue. He just bent his head and kept quiet. He didn't know that his silence would only make her pride grow. And soon, the woman who once held him through pain would begin to forget the meaning of love. The change in Amaka became clearer with every passing day. She now walked with a new kind of confidence, the kind that came from earning her own money. She started buying fancy clothes, perfume, and wigs, saying, "I have to look good for work. Appearance matters." Kelechi didn't complain. He only smiled and said, "You look beautiful, my wife." But she never said thank you. Her heart was changing, and she didn't even notice. When neighbors saw her leave for work, they whispered, "That woman is the man of the house now." Some even laughed at Kelechi, calling him house husband. One afternoon, Amaka returned home earlier than usual. Kelechi was sitting on the floor, trying to feed the twins mashed beans. Their little hands were messy, food everywhere. Amaka's eyes went cold. "What is this? You can't even take care of 2 babies without turning the house upside down." Kelechi looked up slowly and said,
"I'm sorry."
"They were hungry. I'll clean it right away." But she was too angry to listen. "Sorry for what? You can't even get a job. Do you know how hard I work while you sit here like a nanny?" The twins began to cry from the shouting. Kelechi gently carried them to calm them down, tears filling his eyes. He whispered softly, "Don't cry, my babies. Daddy is here. Amaka turned away and muttered, I'm tired of this useless life. That night, Kelechi sat by the window long after she had fallen asleep. He looked up at the sky and said quietly, God, please don't let her heart turn completely cold. But the next day, things only got worse. And soon, something would happen that would test both of them in ways they never imagined. One Saturday morning, Amaka was getting ready for work when she received a message from her boss. He offered to pick her up since they were both attending a company event. She smiled for the first time in days, sprayed her perfume, and hurried out. Kelechi was in the corner of the room, dressing the twins. He looked up and said gently, Don't forget to eat something before you go. She didn't answer. She just slammed the door and left. A few minutes later, her boss drove in, a tall man with a big car and a louder mouth. When he dropped her off in front of their gate that evening, he saw Kelechi standing outside, carrying one of the twins on his back while the other played with sand. The man laughed and said jokingly, So this is your husband? Ah, you really married a soft one. Amaka forced a smile, but said nothing. Inside, shame burned like fire. That night, she couldn't sleep. Those words replayed in her head. You really married a soft one. When she got home, she found Kelechi washing baby clothes in a small basin. He smiled when he saw her and said, Welcome, my love. How was your day? But she ignored him. She dropped her bag and hissed, You enjoy this life, ABI? Doing woman work while I suffer outside. Kelechi's hands froze in the soapy water. He turned slowly and said, Amaka, it's not woman's work. It's family work. These are our children. But his calmness only made her angrier. You and your preaching. I'm the one keeping this house now. Without me, we'd be starving. Her words cut deep. Kelechi said nothing. He just rinsed the clothes quietly as tears mixed with the water. That night, while Amaka slept soundly, Kelechi sat by the baby's cot, humming softly to them. He looked at their innocent faces and whispered, I'll keep loving your mother, even when she forgets who we used to be. Outside, thunder rolled. The wind began to blow harder. It was the sound of a storm, one that was only just beginning. The next morning started quietly. The air felt heavy, like something bad was waiting to happen. Kelechi woke up early to check on the twins. Their bodies were hot. Both were sweating and breathing fast. He panicked. He tried wiping them with a wet towel, but their temperature only kept rising. Amaka, he shouted. Please come. Something is wrong with the babies. Amaka rushed out of the bedroom, half-dressed for work. She touched one of the twins and gasped. Jesus. They're burning up, Kelechi said, his voice shaking. Let's take them to the hospital. But Amaka looked at the time. Her face twisted with worry. Kelechi, I can't be late again. My boss already warned me. Please, just go with them. I'll meet you there. Before he could reply, she was already rushing out the door. He stood there, helpless, holding the babies. Moments later, Kelechi wrapped the twins in a blanket and ran out of the house. The sun was harsh, the road dusty. He couldn't afford a taxi, so he ran, barefoot, sweat pouring down his face. By the time he reached the small clinic, his shirt was soaked, and his arms were trembling. Please help me, he cried. My babies are sick. The nurse rushed them in. Kelechi stood by the bed, whispering prayers through tears. He didn't care that people were staring. He didn't care about his pain. He just wanted them to live. Hours passed. Finally, the doctor came out and said softly, They'll be fine. You brought them just in time. Kelechi broke down. He knelt on the floor, thanking God over and over. Later that evening, Amaka arrived at the clinic, looking tired and distracted. When she saw Kelechi sitting by the twins' bed, his eyes red from crying, something inside her shifted, just a little. He was holding their tiny hands, humming softly to them, the same song he used to sing to her when they first met. Amaka looked at him for a long time. For the first time in months, she didn't see a jobless man. She saw a father. She saw love. But pride is a slow poison. She looked away before her heart could fully soften. And as she whispered, "Thank you," under her breath, Kelechi didn't even hear it. He was too busy praying for the two little lives that had become his world. The twins recovered slowly, and after a few days, they were allowed to go home. Kelechi carried one child on his back and held the other in his arms as they walked back. The evening breeze was cool, but his heart was tired. When they entered the house, Amaka tried to act normal. She dropped her bag and said, "I'm happy they're fine." Kelechi nodded and replied quietly, "Yes, thank God." There was a long silence. Only the sound of the twins' gentle breathing filled the room. Amaka wanted to say more. She wanted to thank him, to tell him how sorry she was for not being there that day, but the words got stuck in her throat. Pride held her tongue like a chain. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching as Kelechi fed the babies patiently, smiling at them with tired eyes. Something about that moment broke her. He had done everything alone, carried them, begged for help, stayed by their side without food or rest, yet he never complained. She remembered how she used to boast at work, saying, "My husband is useless." Now, that same man was the reason their children were alive. That night, when the babies finally slept, Kelechi whispered softly, without looking at her, "Amaka, I may not have money, but I have love for this family. That's something I'll never lose." Those words hit her heart like lightning. Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly wiped them before he could see. When he turned to lie down beside her, she pretended to be asleep. But inside, her chest ached with regret. For the first time, Amaka began to see how far she had fallen from the woman she used to be, the woman who once prayed with her husband, not against him. As the night grew quiet, a small voice whispered inside her heart, "You're the one who changed, not him." And she knew that voice was right. Few weeks later, life began to shift again, but not in the way Amaka expected. Her company announced a sudden downsizing. Half the workers were to be laid off. That morning, Amaka sat at her desk with shaking hands, staring at the list of names. When she saw hers written there, her heart stopped. She had lost her job. The same job she had once used to look down on her husband was now gone. As she walked home under the hot Enugu sun, her mind was heavy. She thought about the rent, the twins, and the shame of telling Kelechi. When she got home, she found him cooking in the small kitchen, singing softly to the babies who were playing nearby. The smell of stew filled the air. For the first time in a long while, that smell didn't irritate her. It comforted her. She stood at the doorway, quietly watching him stir the pot. His back was slightly bent, his shirt damp with sweat. She suddenly realized how much he had been carrying without complaining. Kelechi turned and smiled gently when he saw her. "You're home early. Is everything okay?" Amaka's voice broke. "Kelechi, they sacked me." He froze for a moment, then walked over and wiped her tears with his rough hands. "It's all right," he said softly. "We'll be fine. God is still with us." His calmness made her cry harder. "But how will we feed the twins now?" she sobbed. "The same way we've always done," he replied. "Together." That night, for the first time in months, they prayed side by side again. Amaka knelt beside her husband and whispered, "Forgive me, Kelechi. I forgot what real love looks like." He smiled through his tears and said, "Love doesn't need wealth, Amaka. It just needs two hearts that refuse to give up." Outside, the rain began to fall softly, the kind of rain that washes away more than dust. And as the twins slept peacefully between them, Amaka finally understood that sometimes losing everything is what helps you see what truly matters. Days passed slowly after Amaka lost her job. The house that once echoed with her sharp voice now stayed quiet. She began to understand what Kelechi had faced all those months, the helplessness, the fear, the shame of not being able to provide. Now, it was her turn to feel it. She woke up one morning to find Kelechi already sweeping the compound while the twins crawled around, giggling. He looked tired but peaceful. He wasn't angry or bitter. He just kept moving one small act of love at a time. Amaka sat on the bed and watched him through the window. Something inside her broke. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered, "He stayed kind, even when I wasn't." Later that afternoon, she tried to cook for the first time in months. But she burned the stew. The smell filled the whole house. Kelechi ran in, coughing from the smoke. He saw her standing by the pot, covering her face in shame. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I can't even do this right anymore." He walked up to her quietly, took her hands, and said, "Amaka, it's okay. Let it burn. Maybe this is how we start again." His words hit her like a wave. She broke down completely, falling to her knees, sobbing. "I hurt you, Kelechi. I spoke to you like you were nothing, when you were everything." He knelt beside her, holding her close. "No one wins when pride rules the house," he whispered. "Let's build again, with love this time." That night, they ate together for the first time in months. No fancy meal, just plain rice and peace. After the twins slept, Amaka laid her head on Kelechi's chest and said softly, "I see now love is not who earns more, it's who endures more." Kelechi smiled and kissed her forehead. For the first time, he felt his wife again. Not the proud woman she had become, but the gentle Amaka he fell in love with. Outside, the moon shone through their window, calm and quiet. It felt like heaven was smiling at them, as if saying, "The storm is ending." Weeks passed, and peace slowly returned to their home. Amaka began to smile again. Not the fake smile she wore for the world, but the soft, grateful kind that came from the heart. Every morning, she and Kelechi worked together. He washed the twins while she prepared breakfast. Sometimes they laughed over small things, like who made the pap too thick or who forgot to warm the soup. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was real. And for the first time, that was enough. One sunny afternoon, Kelechi stepped out to buy baby food. On the way, he met his old friend, Chinedu, who used to work with him before he lost his job. Chinedu hugged him with excitement. "Kelechi, I've been looking for you. There's a new transport company in town. They need experienced drivers. Come tomorrow." Kelechi's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Very serious," Chinedu replied. "Tell them I sent you." That night, he told Amaka the news. Her face lit up instantly. "Kelechi, this is it. God has remembered us." He smiled, holding her hands. "No, Amaka. God never forgot us. We just had to learn patience." The next day, he went for the interview and got the job. When he returned home with his first salary envelope weeks later, he didn't brag or boast. He simply placed it in Amaka's hands and said, "This is for our family." Tears filled her eyes. She hugged him tightly and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." From that day, their home became lighter. The twins were growing fast, laughing louder, filling the house with joy. One evening, Kelechi came home with a small surprise, a new dress for Amaka. She gasped, touching the fabric with shaky hands. "It's beautiful, Kelechi." "But why?" He smiled. "Because you've been strong. And because I love you." She held him close, whispering through tears, "We lost so much, but somehow we found each other again." That night, they prayed as a family, their hands joined over their sleeping twins. Their hearts were no longer fighting. They were finally beating together. Months passed, and peace became a friend that never left their home again. Amaka and Kelechi were no longer rich in money, but they were rich in something greater, understanding. The neighbors who once mocked them began to notice the change. Their laughter filled the compound again. Even the twins had grown stronger, always smiling whenever their parents hugged each other. One Sunday morning, after church, Amaka and Kelechi sat outside watching the twins play in the sand. The sky was calm, the wind gentle, and everything felt new. Amaka looked at her husband and said softly, "You remember when I used to shout at you?" Kelechi smiled quietly. "Yes, but I also remember when you stopped." She sighed and held his hand. "You could have walked away, but you stayed. I don't deserve the way you love me." He looked at her and replied, "Love is not about who deserves it. It's about who chooses to stay." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, They were tears of peace. The twins ran to them, laughing. One climbed on Amaka's lap, the other on Kalechi's. And for the first time in a long while, everything felt right. Amaka whispered, "We went through fire, but the fire didn't destroy us. It refined us." Kalechi nodded slowly. "And now we know, a home is not built by money, but by patience and love." The narrator's voice fades in softly as the scene closes. Sometimes, life will test your love through hardship. Sometimes, pride will try to destroy what patience can heal. But true strength is not in who earns more. It's in who loves deeper when things fall apart. The camera pans up to the quiet sky as the twins' laughter echoes in the background. When the wife became the husband, love became their teacher. Respect keeps a marriage strong. Humility keeps it alive. This story reminds us that love is not a competition. When pride enters a home, peace walks out. But when forgiveness steps in, blessings return. If this story touched your heart, please don't scroll away. Click like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can learn the power of love and humility. Tell us in the comments, what lesson did you learn from Amaka and Kalechi's story? We love reading your thoughts.